Don't make any jokes.
No
this is
jokes.
Serious.
Zero jokes allowed.
You don't want to be rebuked by the responsibility police.
Serious. Yeah, that's happened a couple of times to me today.
Happened to JP Sears too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, JP Sears made a joke about, well, you know what he made a joke about. And, there's all these people that's just like, oh, this is a serious situation. You shouldn't be laughing about that and all this. As though somebody's going to be like, yeah, I saw JP Sears make a video about how this isn't that, JP Sears made a video where he made a joke about coronavirus. So I think what I'm going to go do is like start, I don't know, inhaling people's sneezes. I just don't imagine that that's going to happen. So today we're going to talk about using uproar. Could be societal uproar, could be interpersonal, could be you and your spouse or your partner or whoever, using these chaotic moments. And sometimes they're chaotic moments, right? Sometimes there's a lot of people doing a lot of work to create a sensation of chaos or chaos, if you've ever seen the movie The Visioneers with Zach Galifianakis. It's a great one. To create that sensation of chaos, that kind of frenetic energy in the air. Sometimes that's the most chaotic thing that there is. Sometimes the reactions, the sprinting for 16 Costco-size containers of toilet paper, you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes that's it. But how a person like you, perhaps, or like me, or like Melissa, can use those situations as an opportunity to kind of like calm the F down. As an opportunity, I view these things more and more as an opportunity for me to kind of assert my own agency, my own autonomy in terms of what my inner state is going to be like. Because one thing that I find is that there'll be people who, or maybe have a little bit less prone to freaking out because everyone's freaking out. They don't freak out about the same things that everyone freaks out, but maybe they freak out about the fact that everyone's freaking out about something that they maybe don't need to freak out about. And so whether you're dealing with concerns about some scary thing floating around that might make you sick, or whether you're dealing with the fact that you don't necessarily feel that that's necessarily a world-ending issue, but there are people all around you who do feel like it is and who are acting that way, and you're feeling yourself kind of drawn to kind of mirroring that agitation, even if you don't necessarily think the same way that they do, even if you recognize it as being somewhat, maybe manufactured. You're still kind of
Hi, Angel. Hi, Debbie.
You're still kind of being pulled to it. Hey, guys, in a situation like that, I like to recognize that and say, oh, hey, great, here's an opportunity for me to become a little bit less a little bit less dependent upon and sort of intertwined with whatever energies, attitudes, moods, emotional states happen to be occurring in my proximity, so that I can kind of make a conscious and an intentional and an awake and an aware and an autonomous decision to just sort of say, is it necessary for me to be in a state of agitation at this particular moment in time? And if the answer is no, but I still can't quite get myself out of that state of agitation, that to me is an indication of maybe an opportunity for me to do some work on myself, to figure out how I can sort of make myself kind of the decider with regard to how I'm going to feel in a given situation, instead of saying, I'm okay as long as the news isn't scary, or I'm okay as long as my family members don't think the news is scary, I'm okay as long as everyone sees things the way that I do, or whatever. I like to be kind of more independent, and I like to just really be able to kind of set the coordinates for my state, regardless of what's going on around me. And I think, for me, one of my favorite things ever is getting to the place where, like, I don't need anybody else to believe what I believe or know what I think I know or perceive things the way that I perceive things. I don't need anyone else to buy into a truth or an idea in order for me to derive benefits from it, right? And so I think that's one of those things, is kind of like really just asserting your ability just to decide how you're going to feel, how you're going to respond to things, and not get kind of swept up in the current of what everyone else is sort of being led to do.
That is a huge thing, especially, I mean, like the caution police of like but this is actually really, really serious. I spoke with someone recently and they were just kind of concerned. Like at first their reaction wasn't to be concerned, but like they're, people that they think are spiritual or normally are pretty calm and confident, they're freaking out. And so that is kind of a cue of like, should I be more worried than I am? And that sense, and I feel like this is such an important thing, that sense of like irresponsibility that people want to put on you for not being panicked, for not freaking out, for not taking it extremely seriously. And I think there's a difference between taking something seriously and gravely and very concerned and freaking out, and then just responding resourcefully to like what appears to be happening. Like, okay, well, don't go out in public, or you can't go out in big groups, whatever. There's a difference there, and it's an internal difference between like, I'm confident, I'm calm, I'm reacting, I'm responding to what seems to be happening, but I'm not freaked out. And I think that's the most powerful position to be in, and it's the most responsible thing that you can do, is not to panic. Because regardless of, because I share a lot of stuff about German New Medicine because it makes sense to me. It's a paradigm, it's a way of understanding disease and illness that puts you as an individual in complete control of your, reactions, response to life, your tissue adaptations, whatever, to the extent that you can stay calm in situations and not, trigger biological conflicts. My understanding, what I believe, what makes sense to me is that if I stay calm and if I don't have a stink conflict, a fear-fright conflict, a territorial fear conflict, then my body's not going to adapt in certain ways. And because of that, I don't need to panic about what everybody else is panicking about. And it's actually the smartest thing for me to do. But even if you're not on board with that and it doesn't make sense to you and you haven't, looked into it that much, even the very well accepted stress model is when you're stressed, your stress hormones are really high, and stress and panic and fear is for immediate physical threats, like a bear in the living room in Big Bear, California. It's something actually dangerous in your physical environment right here and now. And so your body, the immune system is suppressed. And so, okay, why would we panic? Why would that be a good response to this if we want to stay healthy, stay strong, stay resilient, and if we do catch the big bad bug, that our body can fight it off, And so whichever paradigm you're coming from, I believe that it makes sense to maintain your sense of calm, to do whatever makes sense to you given, your work situation, your family, your kids, have enough food in the house, have plenty of toilet paper, have the things, but don't keep the news on constantly. Don't keep checking the news updates of what's the death toll and has it made it to my state yet, and stuff like that. I mean, you've got to, and I know that people are feeling that there's it seems really weird, okay, that let's hire people for the quarantine in November. Oh, we didn't know that this was going to happen. Weird stuff's going on. And so it's just how are you going to respond to it? And that's what our approach is all about, is responding resourcefully. Given this, what is wanted is kind of the magic question that we use for everything. Given this current situation, how can I respond most resourcefully in a way that makes sense, in a way that brings about more peace, more calm, less chaos, less worry, so that this too shall pass. This is not going to last forever. Whatever it is that's going on, it's going to be a footnote on history not very long from now. And so how can you make the best out of this time? How can you actually use it? Like you said, use it as an opportunity to learn about yourself, learn about the things that pushes, the worries and the fears that push your buttons, and say, isn't that interesting? What can I learn about myself here?
Yeah, the thing to me is, I'm not going to react in ways that don't serve me. I don't care how bad it is. If it's 10 times as bad as anybody is making it out to be, it still wouldn't make any sense for me to be sitting here now worrying and wondering about it. Do you know what I'm saying? You kind of pretty much ascertain, what are you willing to do? What are you able to do? What are you interested in doing in terms of practical measures? If there's, let's say it's an earthquake, right? Let's say it's some sort of national or natural disaster or something like that. If there's some lava flowing towards me, I'm probably going to get the fuck out of the way. You know what I mean? I'm just going to say, oh, look, there it is. I'm going to move away from it. Am I going to go out of my way to be around huge crowds of people? Well, I don't do that anyway. I self-quarantine as sort of a lifestyle. You know what I mean? And so, no, I'm going to do that. But I think one of the things that kind of creeps me out, and this is kind of the pushback that you get, is that these people that are oh, you can't say that, or you can't suggest that, or there's this negative reaction to anybody who seems to be deviating from the party line, which is, it's bad, it's dire, it's serious, it's a problem, it's worse than you think, and it's getting worse than that, and we might not have enough beds, and there might not be enough of this, and it might do this, and it's worse than that, and it's all this different stuff. If you deviate from that, or even if you don't toe it, right? You cannot introduce an idea into the general consciousness without getting pushback from people who feel very responsible. This is their time to shine because they're going to tut anybody who seems to be saying, listen, you don't have to freak out. Now don't panic, but we want you to be worried. Behaviorally, we don't want you to riot, and we don't want you to rush, and we don't want you to steal toilet paper, and we don't want you to do any of that stuff. We want you, though, to be a well-behaved citizen who's really freaked out inside. That's what we want. We want your agitation to be sufficient to kind of shut down your thinking, but we don't want the agitation to be so great that it causes you to behave in ways that are inconvenient to us, the government or the societal regulators or whatever. And there's this kind of strange corralling of consciousness. There's this effort to kind of control the narrative. And it's like, no, you can't say that. You can't make people feel better about this. You can't suggest that, things might be fine. You can't suggest that a person can take certain practical measures to, for me, it's like, if a person's like, don't shake people's hands, fine. Don't go to a gathering of more than 650 people. Okay, I'm probably not going to do that in the next 3 months anyway, if I can help it, right? These are all things that I can adjust to. And now I'm not going to go out of my way to do those things just to show how kind of like spiritually woke I am and how I don't believe in viruses. And so you just, I'm not going to do that. I don't have to do that. But it's weird, though, how people are one, so willing to be manipulated. This is a very strange thing to me. This insatiable appetite that the sort of average person seems to have their perception and their experience molded by some source of authority. That creeps me out more than almost anything else. And one thing that's kind of interesting about people who have kind of a different perspective on this, what you might call your conspiracy theorists or your people who think it's, the government is orchestrating this so that they can do scary things, or the New World Order is doing something. There's this kind of really top-down approach that says that there are these agencies and organizations and entities out there. Then some people think they're lizards and aliens and all sorts of weird stuff, and that they're controlling the world and that they're orchestrating everything. And to me, it seems like the government can't do anything right. I mean, the post office is a funny example of this. Like, they can barely manage the post office. And so the idea that there are these deep state entities that are able to orchestrate these fantastically elaborate schemes without anyone ever finding out about it is hard for me to believe. And I think that people like to blame the media for creating panic. To me, though, that doesn't really seem realistic. I don't think that the media creates panic. I think that at some level, some people are willing and perhaps even eager to be panicked. I don't know if it's about escaping the banality of daily life. I don't know if it's about living in a society where, on the whole, we don't face existential dangers all the time. I really think that to say, oh, the media is doing terrible things and it's their fault everyone's freaked out. Now, I think that the media behaves the way that it does because of the way that individuals respond to the things that the media does. You watch it. Do you know what I'm saying? And the bigger the story is, and the more blaring it is, and the more sort of outlandish it is, and the more kind of carefully orchestrated the facts are presented so that you can create as sort of a dismal picture as possible, more people tend to watch it, more people talk about it, they tweet about it, they hashtag about it, and all this different stuff. So being sort of a proponent of personal responsibility, I don't buy that it's the government's fault. I don't buy that it's the media's fault. I think that if there are manipulative tactics that are, say, in the media, those tactics, the media didn't just decide to do that. They discovered that is what people, individuals, respond to. That's not the media manipulating us. That's our predispositions. That's, in some cases, our personal dysfunctions. That's our own non-responsibility or sense of personal responsibility. It's our own non-awareness feeding up the chain. It's a down, bottom up thing where our characteristics feed upward and sort of concentrate in political establishments. They feed upwards and they concentrate in media outlets. They feed in those institutions that so many people are so willing and ready and able and eager to blame for what's going on. They're just concentrated manifestations of human characteristics. And I think that this is just kind of a really wonderful opportunity to say, it doesn't make sense to me. Freaking out doesn't make sense to me. Do you have some rice and some non-perishable food items in your house? Great. It's probably not a bad idea. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't consume huge amounts of your life or your resources or your time. If you're living in a city where you're surrounded by lots and lots of people, are you doing your best to avoid unnecessary contact with people? Well, in certain cities, that's just how people live their life anyway. Like New York, it's like you don't even look at other people. Do you know what I'm saying? And so that sort of makes sense. But there is this kind of strange, it's this almost fetish for panic and this sort of apocalyptic fetish that you see manifested in so many religious traditions and all of this different stuff. And now we have kind of secular versions of this, where it's not that, Jesus is going to come back and everyone's going to get kind of sent to their respective final destinations. It's now this scary little thing is going to come along. Do you know what I'm saying? And it might, this could be it, everybody. And I think that if we're honest with ourselves, we may notice that agitation and that preoccupation, that fear, that kind of festering worry, no matter how justifiable it may be, everyone agrees with you, everyone's doing their own version of it. Is there a measure of relief in it? Is it allowing you to escape certain inconvenient awarenesses about your life, where your life is going, what's working, what isn't working, all of these different things? Is it providing you with a source of sort of perverse entertainment in a way? Because this may be something that needs to be talked about to some extent. But a lot of the talk that I see going on, I kind of get the sense that there's something else happening. This isn't just a pure transmission of information. Hey, might want to avoid large crowds. That's not what this is about. This seems to be about structuring time. This seems to be about validating pre-existing political opinions. This seems to be about validating basic existential positions. This seems to be about giving us something to focus on, something that's like a big deal, something that's almost like a sporting event, but an even sort of bigger thing than that. People could die. I have to keep talking about it. A lot of people have already died. More people might die, But the thing to me is, what about all the stuff that kills people all the time that you aren't talking about and haven't even ever thought about before? What about those things? And for me, it's just an awareness thing. It's like that ability just to look at what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, how I'm acting, and ask myself a non-judgmental question. And just say, is this stupid? Is this stupid? Is there unnecessary negative emotion? Are there unnecessarily, so much of the way the media covers this stuff, to me, it's like the basic tenets of cognitive behavioral therapy. You just take the best practices of that, and then you just invert them. You just do the opposite of everything cognitive behavioral therapy teaches people to do so that they can sort of learn to live their life. Don't catastrophize. Don't mind read. Don't assume that the worst case scenario is the thing that's going to happen. You just take all those things that can help an individual go from being borderline, incapable of functioning in life, and then they can be a free and healthy and happy person. You take those things and just invert them, and then you're just your average news watcher. And I think that, to the extent that I'm aware that that's what I'm doing, I have a choice about whether or not I'm going to do it. I don't think that there's an immunocompromised person somewhere or an elderly person somewhere that's going to pass away because I haven't tweeted more about this or because I haven't been more agitated. And it's that, like you said, that if it's irresponsible to not worry, the kind of, what's that, is it the inverse or the obverse or whatever, there's just, turn it around. To the extent that you're concerned, you're responsible. To the extent that you're responsible, you're good. You're okay. You're a useful member of society. You're towing the kind of line of consciousness here. You're a good person because you are really worried about this thing. And that to me is just kind of weird. And I don't think any person that's really kind of thinking for themselves thinks in quite that way. You're able just to kind of decline these things because they kind of seem a little dumb.
Yeah, and this work of just managing your own inner state and paying attention to where you are putting your mental money. And I had this thought the other day of just like, if you think like a thought bubble up above everyone, like all of the thoughts being thunk by all of the people, all of the places. And when you think about these thoughts, we do this really awesome exercise, and I invite you guys to join us for the rest of the month of March. You can join. There's no fee to join. It's our Ever Better Life Club that meets on Sundays, and we do this awareness exercise. And you think about all of these thoughts that you think, if you just break them down and put them in two buckets, is it what I want, what is wanted, or what is unwanted? And you think about all of these people and this collective thought bubble, all these people focusing on what they do not want. I mean, there's no choice but for things that we do not want to come to fruition. And so when you realize that on a personal level, and you realize that the only thing that you can do is focus on what you want in your own unique experience, and that means filtering what comes in, the feedback from your external world, in a new and different way. That means taking in information and looking at it and say, is this me thinking about this? Is this serving me creating more of what I want in the world? Or is this making me unsettled, upset, worried, fearful, like what is this thought? If I take it inside, if I put it inside of me, how is it going to, what is it likely to produce within? And when you think about, like the chemical reactions that take place in your body, like truly when you are fearful, your like frontal cortex, the place that all the thinking happens, all the reasonable, logical thought goes on, it shuts down, and you're acting on instinct, you're acting on survival, and you're acting off of emotion. And that's, I posted even earlier this week just about like how you can't use the emotional reaction to judge what's going on, because it is knee-jerk. It's normally not logical. And if you look at it and if you pull the threads and say, what is causing me to have this just like intense, horrible like anxiety or worry or fear about this? Does it make sense? Is it serving me? Is it ultimately true? Is there another way I can think about this? And so I think it's just more important than ever before that we have people that are focused on what they want, that understand that, what's happening and how you feel about it, they're not a one-to-one. You get to decide how you want to feel about it, the meanings that you're going to assign to it, what it means to you, for you, about you. I mean, the thing about this whole virus panic and it causing people to die, like it's 10 times, 20 times, however many times worse than just like the normal, cold or flu. Think about the impact that the idea of it being so bad. Imagine you're an individual, that has a respiratory something, or you've been traveling, or were studying abroad and now you've got to get sent back to your family or whatever, and you got a little something, and then they swab you, they do whatever test they do, and they say, oh, you have it, and then they quarantine you. It's like, okay, well now, because everyone's talking about how bad it is, that fear and that panic, that is what accelerates and worsens what could just be how many people, 60,000 people have already gotten over it, this thing that we are so afraid of. And, it's the fear, it's the panic, it's the OMG, it's me, I've got it now. And now I'm so scared. It's like, you've just got to realize that whatever happens, you're going to respond resourcefully to it. Whatever happens, I'm going to respond resourcefully to it. I'm going to choose thoughts that serve me. I'm going to, and a lot of people say, well, you're living in a dream world, and, like the facts of reality, and it's really bad, and it's this and that, and it's horrible, and the economy and the stock market and blah, 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 blah. It's like, sure, yeah, I could choose to focus on all of those things. I have the capacity to think about those things, but I just know that that's not going to serve me. And when you kind of get that level of just kind of ruthless about your focus and like what you're going to choose to let into your mind and into your heart and into your body and inform your nervous system, because all of your thoughts and all of your emotions are informing your nervous system about the safety of your environment. If you are unsafe, your body adapts. If you are unsafe, your body is, rallying the forces, doing whatever it can to help you to survive that. And then when you relax, your body goes back to homeostasis, and then there will be repair work to do. And so that's just that common sense. It makes sense. So it makes sense for me to stay calm, react responsibly to what's in front of me right now, and not catastrophize anything. And so if it's easy for you, and that's the thing, when you've got so many pathways in your brain that anything can set off a freak out, anything can take me to being fine to anxious, like that. It's just because you've got a lot of mental pathways that lead to anxiety, and you need to build more mental pathways that lead to peace, more mental pathways to say, okay, I'm, really in a freak out now. Do you know how to get back to calm? Do you know how to get back to peace? It's a series of thoughts. It's a series of thoughts that you can think that can take you from one state to another. And that's just the work that we focus on in everything. In the healing work, if you're trying to resolve a conflict, heal from something, if you are dealing with anxiety or relationship problems or financial, anything, it's the one solution to all of the problems. You just kind of mold it to whatever the specific situation is, but it's this master pattern. It's this master approach to responding resourcefully. Given this, what is wanted? Given this, what is wanted? Given what's in front of me, given my current health, given whatever, what can I focus on that's going to make me feel good, calm me down, and move me towards the things I want?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because there are certain people who would even hear what you said, just stating a fact about the number of people who have recovered from this. And someone would say, it's irresponsible for you to say that. But that's a fact. And so one of the things that's interesting is that there seems to be a loyalty and a commitment to a narrative. So it's not enough just to say things that are true. You have to say things that are true and arrange those things in a way that pushes forward a particular narrative. Because we need everyone to be on board with this. We need everyone thinking basically the same way. Or at most, what we need to do is to divide people into two different camps. And so you have to pick the camp of the way of thinking that you're going to have. Because we don't want you being an individual who just responds resourcefully to things and just kind of like does what makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And weighs things out and thinks for yourself. So there's this narrative that has to be pushed forward, and I mean it has to be bad, and it has to be there has to be this kind of, you know, they work so hard to kind of gin up this certain level of ominousness, but they do it without ever having to commit to anything. It's never definitely going to be terrible, but let me just stipulate that it might be horrific, and then I'm going to go in for the next 15 or 20 minutes into vivid detail about how horrific it might be, but I did caveat right at the beginning that it may not actually happen. But what are you left with kind of in the sort of your experience, the experiential flavor is, holy shit, you know, where the worst case scenario is awful. Well, the worst case scenario is always awful. I could literally drop dead while making this video right now. I'm not worried about that because I figured out a long time ago. At some point I'm going to die, probably going to die at a time that I want to continue living longer. I'm basically sort of existentially cool with the way life works. It's like, to me, being born was the greatest disaster of my life in a sense. I mean, because I was born into this just crazy world where people are effed up and they're worried about things and they want me to think about things I don't want to think about and all of this. So as far as I'm concerned, being born is a way bigger disaster than dying. I think, you know, dying is just going to be kind of like, whoop, you know, there we go. So given that, I'm not going to step out in front of a bus. I'm not going to look for a handrail to lick necessarily. I don't need to accelerate the process. I think it's going to happen right on time. I'm not going to like not get the baby out of the road because I'm like, yeah, if it's its time, you know, everything will be fine. I'm obviously going to go down there and get it. What I'm not going to do, though, is sit here in my living room and put myself into a sympathetic state where I'm all freaked out and worried about things that might happen, because I just don't have time for that. I think that's the one thing, is that, like, so there's this narrative that's pushed forward. The other thing that's really weird to me is that social media and the news has become entertainment. I think in large part, we can thank the internet for that. In a way, we can kind of thank Ted Turner and CNN and the 24-hour news network for that. That the news isn't like facts anymore. The news is entertainment that is constructed out of facts that are presented in what you might call an artistic way to make them as gripping and as entertaining as they possibly can be made to be. And that's because people will watch that for longer than they will watch a guy that just says, well, there's a virus outbreak here and it has gone over here and people are taking measures to do it and people can't go to big events. And, you know, I mean, in Italy, people aren't allowed to go to church, but what they say is the only places that are open are the grocery store and the pharmacy. To me, I'm like, yeah, the grocery store and the pharmacy's open. So if I really need something in the next couple of days, I can just go get it, right? That's good. That, you know, but if you present that information in the right way, oh my God, no one's leaving their house in Italy. Well, you know, okay, fine. Maybe that's the appropriate thing for them to be doing. You know, this isn't like for 1,000 years this is going to be this way. And so there's this kind of weird relationship where it's like the weird relationship that forms between people who are together sometimes, where ostensibly at the surface level, I want Melissa to do the things that I want her to do, and she wants me to do the things that she wants to do. But there's this kind of implicit, semi-unconscious sort of not articulated level at which some part of me wants her to do things that annoy me so that I can kind of like do the thing I learned how to do when I was little, when I watched my dad get annoyed with his girlfriend or whatever, you know, so that I can kind of play those things out. Now, I would never admit to that, I guess, except I kind of just did. But you know what I'm saying? There are these different levels to a relationship. When it comes to a person and the news or people on the news or whatever, there's an ostensible level, there's a social level. Listen, I'm watching this because I want to know the facts and I want to know what I have to do and I want to know if I should go out of my house or if I should stay home and all this different stuff. And the news person says, yes, I'm very official. I'm just going to give you the facts and I'm not going to, you know, deceive you and all this different. But there's also a psychological level where the person watching is like, tell me what to do. I want you to tell me the things. Should I be afraid? Should I not be afraid? And the person who's on the news is going, I know what you want. You want entertainment and you want fear, and you want me to make you feel afraid, but also like you can depend upon me to give you information that's going to help keep you safe. And it's kind of
oh my gosh, Marianne goes, yesterday the CBS News began the broadcast with an ominous background music when reporting about the virus, like a Spielberg movie. That is absurd, just like what you're saying.
But it's entertaining.
But that's what the people want. It's like, you know, because the music cues you about how to feel. That's why there are soundtracks to movies, because it cues you. Like right now is a very like important, poignant moment, or right now is a very scary moment.
If the guy just got on and was as boring as I was and just told you the facts and just said, yeah, we had 60,000 people out of 100 and some million people passed away here, and they did this, and then this happened, and then this happened. You wouldn't have the invitation to go, oh, I mean, that would be missing. But like you said, with the music and with the tone of voice, and I don't understand the newscasters who are like, that's a bad situation. You know, that crap getting added in, that's the entertainment value. You know, that's we want to keep you watching. We want to bring you in and kind of activate that emotional human element of you. But if you ever kind of call them on that or point that out, they get very sanctimonious and very self-righteous, and they say, no, we're just saying the facts. Well, I can give you the facts, and then I can kind of lace it sort of with a, psychological, the PCP. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like I can hide that. It's like, here's a joint. It's just marijuana, but it's got something a little extra in it. That's what people do with information. Here's some information. But it's laced with this thing that's going to make you go, whoa, I didn't expect that, And I think that it's developing the ability to see what a bunch of bullshit so much of this stuff really is. And I'm not talking about the pure raw data that's being relayed. I'm talking more about that psychological implication, about how a rational person is obligated to feel given what's going on in the world right now. And I think that just being sensitive to that, and like people have developed a relationship to information and to sources of information, particularly 24-hour news network and social media. And the relationship is, I pick up my device and I look at the screen, and then the information, the data that appears on the screen, and the configuration of that information, the manner in which it's presented, is it somber or is it, whatever, that lets me know how I'm supposed to feel. And I just get wired to do that. I look and I feel from that data and from that information. The people who are putting that information in front of you, they're not doing it because they want you to be informed. They're not doing it because they love you. They're not doing it because they love sharing information. They're doing it because they want to make money. And when you're interested in doing something well, one of the things that you learn how to do is you say, okay, who's my audience? Okay, conservatives, okay, liberals, okay, people who are in the middle. That's my audience. People who are this age, people who are that. And then you tailor your message to appeal to those people as much as possible. Not to improve their lives, not to maximally influence their behavior in a way that's going to serve them without unnecessarily freaking them out. It's how can I get as much screen time? For how long?
Eyes on screens.
Yeah. How long can I keep their eyeballs on the screen? Because like Facebook, the value of Facebook is determined as a corporation. They're responsible, right, to their shareholders. The value of Facebook is not determined by the extent to which it enriches the lives of the people who use it. It's determined to a large extent by how many seconds, how many lifetimes of screen time is it getting? Think about that. How many seconds of human life are spent gazing and scrolling and clicking on Facebook? That's the name of the game. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's an evil thing. I think it's maybe something I'd want to be aware of. Do you know what I'm saying? So that what I'm watching is designed to grab my attention and hold my attention. Now, part of the news network's strategy for grabbing and holding my attention so that it can show the advertisers what a good job it does of grabbing and holding people's attention might be claiming that I'm going to keep you informed, and may in fact involve providing you with some amount of true information. That might be a part of it, but that's not the objective. The objective is making money, and that happens by keeping your attention. And a great way to keep a person's attention is to provoke them emotionally. And a really great way to provoke them emotionally is to provoke negative emotions in them. And then you've got these eyes on this screen. And it's because we respond that way that the news and that Twitter isn't toxic. People are toxic. Do you know what I'm saying? Or people have patterns that are toxic. Twitter doesn't make people mean. People express certain tendencies and characteristics that they have on the medium, and the medium kind of comes to reflect the inclinations of the people who are using it. Now, it might play into those things and magnify them, but you can't magnify what's not there. And so I think one of the big things for me is just to kind of recognize that there are the raw facts, there is the data that, You could die from this. Sure you could. You could die from anything. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, the roof could literally, there's a huge chandelier kind of sitting over top of us right now. I don't know how long that thing's been there. I've never tested it to see if it's, I could, but I'm not really worried about that because I'm reasonably sure that it's not going to fall. If it does fall, I'm reasonably sure I'll be able to survive it. And hey, if I'm wrong about all those different things, my sense of well-being isn't predicated upon my deluding myself that I and the people that I care about are never, ever going to pass away. I realize that's kind of part of this game. So I'll take reasonable precautions to make sure that those things don't happen, sure. But I'm not going to waste a single solitary second of my precious time here on this planet worrying about the fact that eventually I'm going to conk. I mean, it's just the way it is. And I think that one of those things is that to the extent that you have unresolved misgivings about the fact that you and everyone you love will one day be dead, right? To the extent that an individual has unresolved issues with that, or that they haven't fully come to terms with that and found a way to genuinely just kind of embrace the reality of life, I think that you tend to be vulnerable to people who would sort of use those misgivings, use those non-resolved things as kind of a lever or a wedge to pry their way into your psychology and to manipulate you emotionally so as to modify your behavior in a way that's advantageous for them. Now, you can't blame them for doing that. You know, that's just what people do, is that they just kind of find the weak point and they find the thing that gets the response and then they do it. You know, if I didn't have a button, you wouldn't be able to push it, kind of thing. But if you become aware of it, which is kind of what I'm really all about, is it's just developing more personal freedom, developing the capacity for more conscious choice. Can I hear somebody tell me about something bad that is happening and that may get worse? And can I decide consciously how I'm going to interact with that information? Can I make a conscious choice about what I'm going to do and not do in response to that? Or do I have a compulsive, addictive, unconscious, automatic, mental, emotional, behavioral reaction to anything? So it's like Pavlov's dog. It's like I ring the bell, the dog starts salivating. I put something scary on the news, everyone shares and likes and shares and likes, and then you get fighting going on, and then all this, and then the advertisers are there just kind of going, you know, this is great, you know. I want people to have a choice about that.
Yeah, like if there wasn't, someone said that they blocked all like the photos of the empty grocery store shelves. We saw a post that it was like they emptied it, like they took the stuff off the shelves so that the news reporter could stand there in front of empty shelves instead of full shelves. And it's like, if there wasn't one social media post, I think it, you know, like Australia is the first I had heard about with like the toilet paper disaster. You know, like if there wasn't that, and you know, here's the information. Ooh, everyone goes buys toilet paper. You know, it's that normal, that reactive response that is predictable. I mean, and that's the thing, is like, am I going to buy into it? Am I going to be a type of person that reacts in this very predictable sort of way to this type of stuff? Or am I going to just do what makes sense for me, to me, in my life, in my situation? And like, that's just that power that I really just would love for everyone to develop, because it is so wonderful to feel like you are in control of your emotional experience and not to feel like it is in the hands of everybody else in the world. And before I knew how to do this kind of stuff that we do, I didn't feel like I had any power over how I interpreted my world. It just was like, I just feel worried. I just feel scared. I just feel anxious. I just feel whatever. And there was it didn't feel conscious. It didn't feel like there was any choice in the matter. It was just the way that it is. And I feel like so many people are living that way, you know, because that's how I lived for 25 years. And if I hadn't have come across a couple of very important people and information and ways of like learning about myself and my inner workings, I would still be one of those people, you know, and in many ways. And so it's such an opportunity. It's such an opportunity. Every adversity has a seed of greater benefit. And so if this is the thing that wakes a bunch of people up and gets them seeing, okay, I was not being in control of my state, my emotional experience. My emotions were in everybody else's hands, and it gives you that opportunity to take things back into your control and to say, is this something I can shift? Is this something I can change? And give you the power. And that's the thing. It's when you feel powerful, when you feel in control, when you don't feel like a victim, when you don't feel like you are prey, just waiting for something bad to happen, your body has no need to adapt. It's like, she's good. Everything's well. homeostasis, balance. That is what health is. And when you are afraid, when you are feeling small, and when you are feeling powerless, when you are feeling fearful, when you are afraid of the big bad something outside of you, that is when you fall into that state of adaptation. And I mean, that's like G&M in a nutshell, is just understanding that. And when you can make yourself big, make yourself strong, make yourself, invulnerable and imperturbable by the vicissitudes of the masses, you don't really care. You kind of walk calmly through the crowd of people with their masks and their hand sanitizer, and you just go to the grocery store and you just do your stuff, and you're not concerned, and all is well in your world. And so by starting there, we just need more people sending off those vibes, walking through the world with that state of calm, ease, and that is just as contagious as the panic, and so if we have more people in that state of mind, which I hope are all of you, that's the pendulum will shift, the tides will turn, things will change, and it's how are you going to be in the meantime? And that is just, we'd love to just help you in any way that we can to embody that truth within you so deeply that you do not feel so vulnerable to stuff outside you.
Yeah, to me it's make a list of the behavioral things that you're willing and able to do those things, and then that's it. What else is there for you to do? I don't like the perfunctory worry. I don't like that. It kind of reminds me of it. I remember I listened to a video of when the House here was voting to impeach Trump, and all the Democrats were doing their thing, and they were all basically, everyone has to do a roll call and say, I'm voting to, basically, impeachment, I'm good for impeachment. That was essentially the takeaway message. But they all had to do this kind of flowery thing where they go, it was my solemn and somber duty, solemn and somber. And I'm thinking after about the 35th or 40th person to do that, I think I'm going to change my wording. I'm not going to be the 50th guy to be solemn and somber, solemn and somber. Yeah, you're going to impeach him, right? You're going to impeach. All hands up for impeachment, yeah. But why can't we just get to it? Why can't we just get to, hey, avoid big crowds? Why can't we, wash your hands? Here, rub this gel on your hands. It'll make you feel it's magic. It'll keep you safe. You know what I'm saying? It'll protect you. Okay, fine. Make a decision. You're going to do that. You're not going to do that. But then kind of go about your business. Maybe you're going to lay low for a while. That's cool. Are you going to think about it and talk about it constantly? Are you going to allow your inner state to be kind of put on hold by it? You know what I'm saying? Are you going to kind of buy into that weird kind of collective, oh, my God, you know what I'm saying? It was I was worried about climate change as I was walking down the street going to my job, because that helps a lot. But now I'm worried about this other thing. And it's just, I just refuse to ping pong from one existential crisis to another. When a person has better things to think about, and when a person realizes their job is just respond resourcefully to what has your attention. Sometimes the best way that you can respond resourcefully to what has your attention is to change what has your attention. It's to say, it's not useful for me to be thinking about this anymore today. It's not. Do you think that if you miss a tweet, or if you miss Don Lemon talking about how serious this is, that you're going to walk up to an old person on the street and tear their mask off and sneeze in their face? I don't think that's going to happen. I think people basically get it. They get it. They understand kind of what's going on. Is the government doing everything it ought to be doing? Probably not. It never really does. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? You know what I'm saying? To me, it's just kind of I want to be the sort of person that recognizes the opportunity in every situation. And there's opportunities that are sort of interpersonal. There are opportunities that are intrapersonal. This is an opportunity to look around and say, sometimes the world is chaotic. Sometimes that chaos is probably naturally occurring. Sometimes that chaos is probably kind of orchestrated. Sometimes maybe it's a mix of the two. Sometimes we see a little wave and everyone says, "Oh, let's get this going. Let's really kind of lean into this." Sometimes maybe it's sinister. Sometimes probably it isn't. Most of the time, I think it's just everyone doing the best they can with the resources available to them at the time. I think a lot of people, when they don't know what to do, they default to intense negative emotional reactions, because somehow or another that feels better than doing nothing. Very often, though, doing nothing is the best way to go. Alan Watts has this really great thing where he talks about the best way to calm muddy water is just to leave it alone and to let the sediment kind of settle, And that muddy water can be society. That muddy water can be, a population. That muddy water can be your own thoughts and your own mind. Sometimes, instead of chasing after all the things that are going, sometimes with my dog, if he grabs something of mine that he shouldn't. Sometimes he'll grab like a book, or my books all fall apart, and so he'll grab a bunch of the pages, and he'll kind of, and he wants me to chase him. And if I chase him, we're going to go around the house, and he's going to slobber all over it, and we're going to lose pages here and there and get tear. But if I just let him have it, he loses interest because it's not fun to play with. And sometimes, mentally, when you're kind of in a tailspin, when you're freaking out, the best thing you can do is just leave it alone. And I like to just kind of watch, and I like to say, here I am. This is interesting. I feel like I could freak out. That's interesting. I wonder what would happen if I didn't. I wonder what would happen if I did. Maybe it's fine either way. That's kind of a calm response to even the possibility of freaking out. I wonder what will happen tomorrow. I wonder in 100 years from now, will this be anything that matters? I mean, I wonder how, and I kind of put myself in that interesting position. You remember when you learned about the Spanish flu? I guess you can't call it the Spanish flu anymore, the 1918 flu. I remember learning about it like in 5th grade or whatever, and I was like, okay, a lot of people were sick. It was really awful and terrible and scary. The Great Depression, kind of the same thing. Look at me now. Here I am. It's 1998. I'm, hearing about Bill Clinton getting a BJ from some intern in his office, and I'm like a kid, and I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Why am I learning about the president doing that? Life goes on. Things proceed. And sometimes it's really useful to be able to place yourself out at some point in the future where the thing that you are now worried about, or that you could be worried about, is probably just not going to matter at all. And having that ability just to kind of like say, okay, well, I washed my hands, so what's left to do? You know what I'm saying? Well, I don't know. Maybe I can just use this as an opportunity to work on myself. The smartest people in the world right now, are thinking about what opportunities this represents. Are there going to be interesting medical advancements? Is this an opportunity to buy up some stocks? Are you a lot of people buy gold and metals and things like this. People are thinking kind of into the future. And I think that having something resourceful and useful to think about is so important. And sometimes it's nice to have those things before these kind of events happen, because it kind of propels you straight forward through that thing. And for me, one of the big things is like working on myself in my own sort of imperturbability. And it just gets weirder. I mean, there's always kind of, I think, a gap that exists between people who are attempting to be more aware and more conscious and more sort of like in control of what it's like to be them and the average population. When stuff like this happens, that gap tends to become more of a chasm, and people who are on the kind of more conscious side tend to be more almost kind of ostracized. It's more to the extent that the herd mentality is amplified. Being an apostate, it becomes a worse and a worse and a worse kind of thing. I mean, it gets to the point where you'll offend people just by not sweating enough and perspiring enough and anxiety. Do you know what I'm saying? And at that point, that's a wonderful opportunity to learn even more how little it matters what other people think, and to sometimes to be comfortable existing in isolation sort of your awareness. I mean, sometimes that's a reality. I want to be able to handle that. Sometimes I'm the only person in the room who's not losing their shit. Now, when that happens, does that cause me to lose my shit? Or can I still keep it together? That's a wonderful skill to be able to have. I mean, and the more kind of imperturbable you become in that regard, the less you're able to make sense about worrying about anything. I mean, the government could descend upon the house right now and snatch me up and take me and put me in a quarantine chamber. I just don't think I'd be able to worry about it. I think I'd be like, okay, whatever. This is what's happening. Apparently, this is what's happening. I'm going to get out of here if I can, but I'm not going to get upset about it. If I start showing symptoms of a fever or whatever, I mean, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, and that really comes from kind of a personal history of responding resourcefully to fears. Things that have scared you, opportunities and invitations that you've had to just sort of put yourself into this downward spiral tailspin. And when you learn to make conscious choices, just to not do that, you gain a kind of incredible ownership over your experience, over what it's like to be you, that makes it so that you have the choice to be kind of calm and in a state of equanimity, regardless of what's going on. The wonderful thing about that, though, is that it also frees you to respond at an intelligent, adult, kind of rational level to legitimate concerns that are in front of you. It allows you to maximize your ability to do something about things you actually have the ability to do something about.
It's just that whole thing about resistance. When you resist something, have you ever been, I've experimented with this times when I've had intense kind of physical pain. One time my toe, I had this horrible pain, and it was throbbing and awful, and when you resist it, when you push against it, when you say this shouldn't be happening, that's when it's the worst, like if you're in quarantine or if you're if you're in prison and you're like just so torn up about how awful and how unjust and how horrible, and you're resisting against it, that makes it worse. But like you can literally like transmute your experience even of pain by no longer fighting it. And it's a really bizarre experience. I mean, people do this with childbirth, like something that people think should be the most, is the most painful experience ever. And they have orgasmic births because you can transform anything if you change your perception of it. And that's the thing and that's just like this magic of just mental alchemy and being able to change the way that most people see things, the way you used to see things, and you just don't see them in that way anymore. And it's opportunity to do that, opportunity right now, moving forward. Who knows what's going to happen? What kind of crazy wackadoo gobbledygook thing is going to happen next in this? It seems like we're in a movie, and it's like, okay, what character am I playing in this movie? Am I going to be the person who's, calm and steady and resourceful and is future thinking and focused on what they want and creating regardless, and knowing that this too will pass and that everything will be better? Am I setting myself up for the next stage, or am I just succumbing and just, roll in the chaos if you need to? If that's like your role, if that is what makes sense to you, I mean, by all means, I don't fault anyone for feeling the way that they feel about the craziness. It's like, if that's how you feel about it, if that's what makes sense for you to do, it's your sense-making process I'm a little worried about, but that's your business. And so I think the people that are interested, will find those resources and lean into it, and it's the people that are, like 5%, like 95%, I'm on board, I understand like GNM and I understand mindset and I understand all, but there's that 5% that I'm just a little, you work on that 5% then, like lean into what makes the most sense to you, and, have no quarter for the thoughts, the doubts, the worries, the fears, because when you feed them, they grow. When you feed them, they grow. When you feed them, they grow. And so it's just like noticing what I am paying attention to, I am feeding. It is my life energy. It is nourishment. It is lifeblood. It is oxygen. And so that's why it's just so vital that you are aware of what you are giving life to, what you are pumping blood into in your experience, because it's getting bigger and there's going to be more of it. And so if it's something you don't want, stop feeding it. And just, you have to get very disciplined in your thinking, and people are just so not disciplined in their thinking. They don't think it matters. They're just reacting. And so if you'd like to work on this discipline and focus and get around, people and minds who are, thinking in this type of way, please join us on Sunday. Send me a message. I'll get you the Zoom link. We kind of do a Zoom meeting so everybody can be there. And we talk about different exercises you can do, mental shifts, more of this type of stuff. We can answer questions and help you on like specific things, obstacles that seem difficult to, how do I take this particular thing apart? And we'll
regular life stuff, so that just in case we don't all die, we're still going to have to deal with our relationship crap and all of our other mindset issues. And so that's my thing that I'm interested in, is assuming I survive this, what skill do I want to develop during this time that I will be glad to have developed and that will help me improve what it's like to be moving into the future. As far as I know, a worry doesn't have any kind of antiviral benefits. And if it did, then okay, maybe I would work on worrying a little bit, but it doesn't really work that well. And so given that, is there something more resourceful that I can do? Can I be kind of more unflappable? Because that's going to work, because there's always going to be something to worry about. That's the interesting thing. And so if I can recognize this as like, this is something that I could worry about, and this is something everyone's worrying about. Do I want to learn how to not worry when worrying doesn't make sense, even if literally the entire rest of the world is worried? Yeah, that would be a useful skill. That'd be a nice skill. I can feel better, and maybe I can act smarter when everyone else is kind of up in a panic. And so those are just those kind of basic life skills that'll help you improve your relationship and, help you have as good a time as you possibly can during the pandemic. I mean, that to me is a multifaceted tool. That's an existential or an experiential Swiss Army knife that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Love you guys. Have a good one. See you later.